Good morning, art appreciators. I wanted to talk a little bit about Monet and Manet. They're very easy to mix up when you start talking. It's like mayonnaise, mayonnaise, or something funny, but you'll sometimes mix them up. But they are two entirely different people, two entirely different styles, and they had really some things in common, but not really too much. What's interesting about the Impressionist movement is it really came out. We look at these pictures of these old guys. Like, look, check this out. Like, here's Monet. You see an old man, cute little old man, but you got to remember when these guys were in their prime, they were young, just like we are. They're hip, they were cool, they were all the things that is about youth. But we look at them as these old fussy old men when really, we got to remember that in their day they were young and hip as any of us. So the Impressionist movement was kind of interesting because what they were interested in, which was different from what was happening, before. And think about it, we've kind of done a big giant leap from Baroque with Caravaggio to the Impressionists. So you got a good couple hundred years in there of even more than that of what's happening in the art world. But what the Impressionists did is they really rejected everything that was classical. And even remember the Salon and the academies are really still strong in France well into the 18th century, even the early 19th century. So these were still really tied in the wool institutions. So when these guys came along, they broke those rules. And what they were interested in, they were interested in catching an impression of something. Think about photography. Photography has been invented by this point. And what photography does is it catches an instant of time. And while you can say that technically about all paintings, it's an instant in time, these guys really did it. They were interested in what color what the effects of color were on an object. They were interested in what light had an effect on an object. They were really more about color and light than they were about the thing itself. So while it might have been all well and good that they were painting a haystack, the haystack was almost secondary to the light, the shadow, the play of that, than really rendering a haystack correctly. Another thing that they did that was interesting is had a very limited use of the color black. And think about it, if you think back to old paintings, Renaissance, Baroque, there was a lot of black. It might have been muted, it might have been watered down with other colors, made tints and tones, but for the most part, black isn't used by the Impressionists, and you might ask why, and the reason was they were looking at light. And think about it, when you look at yourself in the mirror up close in the morning, right after you wake up, if you look up close to your face, you might see green under your eyes or blue. You might see veins, reds. You might see, different shades of those colors in your face. When you think about people, dark circles under their eyes, you think black or brown, but really it's a mixture of those other colors, those blues and the greens that make it that dark color. So that's what they were into. They were looking at what the other colors were besides black, so they don't use black. They were also very much this middle class. They were the bourgeoisie. They were the people who were outside. They were the upper middle class. These weren't the really wealthy people, but these were the people with means. These were the people who had funds to go out to eat. These were people who had funds to go to the theater, to go to dances. I mean, these were people who had disposable income, and so their artwork is different from what you saw maybe in the Renaissance, when it was solely based on what the church and the Baroque was doing. It was solely based on the church. And so it's an interesting mix of dynamics. So here's Monet, cute little man. Remember that he was an acquaintance of Manet, and at first Manet was a little off-put by this little young he was like a little mosquito buzzing around him, and he didn't like Monet too much because he thought he was trying to steal his ideas and that he was kind of an upstart. When in fact they became such tight friends that I think I mentioned it in the last one of the videos, that Monet was actually Manet's pallbearer when he died. And so there was enough age difference in there that Monet was kind of a little, like the little brother, the little pest that wouldn't go away. This painting here is called Impression Sunrise, and this was the painting where the movement got its title. Remember, the Impressionists were upstarts. They were rebels. They were, thumbing their noses at the establishment. And what he's doing is capturing an instant, an impression of a sunrise. He didn't call it that. That was not Monet's title for this. A critic saw this painting and walked by it and said, it's nothing but an impression of a sunrise, and kind of poo-pooed it and walked away. And all the guys are like, high five, fist bumps, woohoo, this is great, because it was the derision of the critics that made them happy. So look at the short, choppy brush strokes. Look at how you can see how he's just dabbing color. Look at this here in the middle. You make out that it's a boat, you make out that it's people, but what is it really? It's just blobs of paint. That's all it is. But if you step back and get, farther away, look at it, you can see the ship, you can see the mast of the ships, you can see the steam rising up. You can make all these things out further away, but up close it's nothing but speckles of color. Check this one out. Look at the people down here walking on the boulevard. Look at how he's, again, breaking rules by making that diagonal right across the picture plane. Not supposed to do that, but all of these are little dabs of color, but we're reading it as people moving. In 1 second, this person is going to be this much further in the picture plane. This person is going to be that way. The trees are going to be rustling. It's not going to be the same. The horse and carriage are going to be further away. So it's just an instant of time, or just an impression of time. It's nothing more than that. Oh, and this is really cool. This is the Rome Cathedral. And he did a whole series of these cathedrals where he did them in different parts of the day. And he would literally set up a canvas, several canvases, 4, 5, 6 canvases sometimes with different palettes. He would keep the palettes covered so the paints wouldn't dry out, but he would sit there all day long and look at how the light changed on this building. So while the building's really cool, the building's really interesting, he was much, much more interested in how the light and color played on those buildings. Same thing with the haystacks. Look at the shadow here. Look at all those blues, greens, purples. All of this is, there's no black here. And all of this is he's looking at those shadows for the colors that's being reflected off of and off the other objects in the picture plane. That's how you can tell that it's an impressionist painting. Here it is in the museum. I don't know why my mug is in front of it, but that's it as it hangs in the museum. I believe this is the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. This is his Saint-Nazaire train station. Now this is still one of the busiest train stations in Paris, and this was kind of the hubbub of the Industrial Revolution. People who'd lived in these little podunk towns their whole lives are finally being able to move to the city because of the trains, the steam engine. But look at how beautifully he's captured those puffs of smoke, that steam, and how you can just get a sense of the moisture in this building and how everything's. You can see the daylight behind you and the dark, or the shadowing and the shading of the glass awning above you. I mean, he's really capturing light. He's much more concerned about it being a light and reflection of that light than it is about being a train and steam. Oh, here's my mug from, God, a long time ago. I'm still, hey, Front Range, right on. But the Saint-Nazaire train, you can see how small that painting is. Boy, that's a long time ago. And then, of course, his water lilies. As you know, his water lilies are what he's, most people know his water lilies. And what's interesting about Monet is he made enough money in his lifetime. His wife is also quite wealthy, his first wife. And he had enough money in his lifetime, was well known in his lifetime to really be celebrated and to, have a home in Giverny where he had his summer place. He was able to maintain studios in both places. So he had some cash. But what he did is these gardens, what's interesting about these water lilies is these are all man-made ponds. These were not on the property when he acquired them. So he had all of these ponds put in. That tells you what kind of cash the dude had. But look at the color, the reflection. You can see the sky reflected here. They're really quite stunning. They're beautiful. And think about it. Every cheap hotel you've ever gone to in your life has a impressionist style painting on the wall. I mean, check it out next time you're in a hotel because they're always there. But look at when you look up close, they're just little dips and dabs of color. There's a YouTube video, I'll let you watch it, about him. But this is kind of cool because here's one of his ponds and then the bridge. And I think this is the main architect that helped him with building the bridges and the ponds. But really quite cool. Oh, and one other thing, he went blind later in his lifetime, sort of like Matisse. But here he is early when he first acquired the site, when he first filled the Garden of Giverny and the bridge, and you can see his eyesight is good. Here you can see how he's blinded with cataracts, which is kind of sad. So you can really see how his vision changes as he goes blind. But this is really kind of cool because I have been kicked out of the bar at the Folies Bergère. I have, yay me. We were in Paris. I wanted to see the bar, and they still use it today as a concert place where they have concerts at night. And so this place is a long 100-year history, more than that, of being an establishment, a bar, a gathering place. But what's interesting about this painting is there's a long stairwell that goes up. Interesting about the bar. Well, let me start at the beginning. We asked the girl at the ticket office if we could go in just to look. And she kind of looked at us like we were insane. We're like, please let us go in for 5 minutes just to see inside. Because I wanted to see this mirror. You can see this mirror behind her. And to see if that was still there, because there's been dissertations written about this mirror. And in our broken French, we asked her if we can go in. She's like, okay, 5 minutes, but I want you out here in 5 minutes. Then, because we got to have people. There are people lined up to go in the show. I think she thought we were trying to crash in to go in, but we weren't. And so she let us in. You walk inside, and there was this giant stairwell that right up the middle of the room, and it was like a big oval room, like two horseshoes put together. And the whole inside was open, had a stairway that came up the middle, and so you could look over the balcony. You can see the balcony here and look inside. So this is the ground floor. So we had walked up this big staircase and stood, and you could see where the wall curves. And you can see how this is the funky reflection of her light, of her body back here. And so as soon as we get up there, we hike the stairs 2 at a time, run up the steps, and we stood up there and looked around, and suddenly this man who was as big as a wall starts screeching at us in French to get the hell out. And of course we leave quickly down the stairs as fast as we could because he was not happy with us. And what's interesting about this is the barmaid is named Suzanne, and women who worked in bars were not the women of high reputation. They were, she could give you more than a drink, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you know what I mean. I mean, she was, women, they had other trades. But what's interesting about this bar is this is a place of people with wealth. And if you look at it, you have champagne here, which would have appealed to the French tourist. You have Bass Ale, yay Bass Ale, the oldest beer patent in Europe right there. And this was for the German tourists. There's fruit, fresh fruit here, tangerines, which would have been very much springtime sort of luxury item, or early fall item, these tangerines. And then you have absinthe here, which of course everyone was addicted to. Everyone loved their absinthe. And the fresh flowers, it's a sense of wealth. Look at here, you have gas lamp lights. So this would have shown you this would have been a place for wealthy people. You have women here in gloves, hats. The men are in top hats. They're opera glasses watching the show. You'll notice up here there's disembodied feet, and they're green feet. And so there's a woman on trapeze here that they're watching the show. But you see this man over here has come up to talk to Suzanne. He's got a cane and a walking stick in his hand. Now, Manet was suffering from syphilis, advanced stages of syphilis at the end of his life, and he had partial paralysis, and the way it had manifested itself in his foot. Well, he could barely walk by this point, and he would even paint. This is the last major painting he did before he died. He did one smaller one. But imagine him trying to go up those stairs for a dude who wasn't able to stand up for more than 20 minutes at a time. And, we had effortlessly ran up these stairs, and he had, imagine him plodding up the stairs, and look at the look on her face. He is not well. He has been at this place, he's drank at this place, he's partied at this place, and yet look at him now. And the look on her face is like, oh man, you do not look good. You do not look good at all. And she knows that he's not well. Well, actually, his foot is amputated right after this painting is done, and he dies 13 days later. The foot is amputated in his apartment. They threw it in the fireplace, of all places. I know that's how they did things. But he didn't make it. He didn't make it through this. So he's not well, and he's, again, at the advanced stages of syphilis. So this is really his last major painting. If you look at this composition, there's a triangle here, there's a triangle here, there's really a upside down, even though you can even say real triangle here, there's a lot of triangle things of focusing. She's almost this Christ-like, almost benediction figure here. It's just a stunning painting, what he's done here. Remember that bracelet from the Olympia? There it is again, with his mom's hair in it. The flowers here and her dress, to dress her up a little bit. And it really is a stunning painting. I would like to go into more depth with it, but I just wanted to give you an overview of this one. This is really, here's one of his contemporary studies. Here he is here. Much smaller version of himself. Remember that his leg is amputated. So there goes his, is there some symbolism here with the dangling feet? Here's a close-up, but look at again, remember now, he's not considered an impressionist by really. I mean, you can make a case that he's impressionist, but I don't know if he himself would consider himself an impressionist. He's never exhibited with the boys, but he's using black in his color palette. Look at how her face is a little flushed, how its skin is different from her neck. It really is quite lovely. It really is a lovely, lovely painting. Here it is done in little paint swatches, which I think is just a scream, yay. and you can buy me that. My birthday's in October, and of course, you know I want those shoes. And here we are, 2001 in London. I took students from Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, and we got to see the painting. So it was yay, good time, fun. So a little bit. Oh, and you have